guys to speak quieter between yourselves. Awesome. Okay. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about why this is unequal punishment and why it's important for it to be equal in this specific sense. I'm going to continue what Ofek started to talk about, which is this is going to lead to more crime and more violent crime, and I'm going to put into why actually the poor are the most important population in this debate, because they're more at most risk to be significantly harmed. For that, rebuttals! Yay! Okay, so they talked to us about the middle class and why they're all so important, but note that for the middle class, there's going to be essentially no delta, because currently the fines are targeted towards approximately the average, which is the middle class is approximately average, so it's going to stay the same for them. There's basically going to be absolutely no change, so it's unclear what impact we have from all this. The whole discussion of the issue of wanting to do taxes and all of that, like, sure, sounds great. That's a different debate and not mutually exclusive with this one. In terms of the poor, that they tell us, oh, if this is so serious, we need to solve this in different ways. Yes, we do need to solve this also in different ways, but it doesn't mean that the government should take part in making their situation even worse. Both things are true at the same time. In terms of the rich, saying that, oh, the rich anyways aren't worried because they know that they're less likely to get caught. Yes, we agree. Currently, the rich are less worried. That's why we need to make their fines higher so that they have a bigger deterrent than in the status quo. Whether you think that is a big delta or a small delta, it is a delta. They are more deterred than now in any case. And like, oh no, the middle class won't go on vacation. Sure, luxuries are nice, but luxuries are not a necessity. And so even if the impacts of them do hold, they're not nearly as important impacts as the impacts will be on poor people. And in terms of the issue of equality, seriously, please write to each other, don't whisper. In terms of the issue of equality, yes, we agree. We do want justice to be equal. And I'm going to explain to you now in my first point why this is equality and not just giving the same sum of money. So, essentially, Ofek already says this in the speech, but I'm going to make it super extra clear. When someone has, I don't know, 500 shekels in the bank, and when someone has 5 million shekels in the bank, and you tell them both to pay, I don't know, 100 shekels, for one person, that's a fifth of their money. For the other person, it's a very small amount that I can't calculate on my feet, but it's like way less than 1%. It's a penny, it's like 0.0, I don't know, whatever. It really is a drop in the bucket. So if we give them both the exact same fine in terms of the same amount of money, it isn't the same in terms of the impact on the person. And what we care about when deciding on how big a fine should be for someone, not yet, is how it affects that person and not just the lump sum of money. Now, why is how it actually affects and is read by the person the most important thing? So, we always like to talk when we're talking about how we punish people, about the important things are deterrent, justice, rehabilitation, and getting them away from society. Obviously, that last one is irrelevant for fines. That's only when you're talking about prison. Let's talk about the first three. So, first, what in general is the goals of punishment and specifically fines? What we want to do is just reduce the amount of crime in society. That is our goal. That is more important than anything else, to have society hurt the least amount. So, in terms of deterrent, what it matters is how the perpetrator sees this punishment. And we want them all to be deterred to an equal amount. So when a poor person is scared to death from committing the crime because this is the thing that might take them over the edge, but a middle class person is like, sure, 100 shekels here, 100 shekels there, because when you're making, like, I don't know how much they think they're making, because to be taxed 50%, you need to still be making, I don't know, but at least each salary has to be at least 20,000 a month, which for a two-worker household, you're making 40,000 a month, which is, like, I wish. But basically, 100 shekels when you're making that much money per month isn't significant. You won't see it as such a deterrent, whereas the poor person is absolutely terrified about it, not yet. So, what we want them in terms of a deterrent, to see it as the same amount of deterrent. Maybe for this crime, we want everyone to be more deterred than they currently are. Maybe for this crime, we want everybody to be less deterred than they currently are, but we want them all to be the same amount of deterred. We want all people equally as unlikely to commit that crime. In terms of rehabilitation, basically, it's the same kind of idea. Rehabilitation in the case of fines is essentially giving a message to someone that they did something wrong. So for a rich person, the fine is aimed at what the middle class is, and certainly if it's aimed at what how much you should give to a poor person, then they just don't care. They don't care at all. We have to make their fines higher for them to understand that this is something that they actually did wrong. Currently, they don't even realize how wrong this is because they're like, oh, who cares? This is nothing money to me. It's nothing money for the government. This is unimportant in our society. In order to make them understand that it's important, it has to be an amount of money that has some sort of impact on their bank account, on their bank account. Second.
Yes. Who do you think commits more crimes, and who do you think gets more fines?
Honestly, it doesn't actually matter if poor people or middle class people or rich people commit in the status quo more crimes. I still believe that they should all be deterred in the same amount. And if there are additional factors that cause them to commit more crimes other than whether the fine deters them or not, then I agree that we should also solve those other factors, but we shouldn't solve them through whether or not they are deterred. Now let's talk briefly about how this leads to more crimes. So basically, as Ofek already established, this is what's going to tip the poor people over the edge. So basically, they're in a situation where they need to get money quickly. They need to feed themselves, they need to feed their children, they need to make sure that they have a roof over their heads. And how do you get money quickly? Basically, the number one way is generally theft. You don't really have another way. Maybe you can take a giant loan with horrible interest, but then you're just going to be in the same situation a year later where you need to pay even more money, even more quickly, and then you'll be even more desperate and more likely to commit theft or even armed robbery if you get really desperate to feed your kids so they don't starve. So basically, you're more likely to commit crimes, and we care most about this because this is what's going to have the most impact